Futurist Jim Carroll, you might be getting kind of sick of me, but the only way I can figure out how to live in this new world is to actually go live. And so I'm back in the studio. I did my 11:30 show this morning, and it went out to Zoom today. But for some reason, the stream that goes out to Twitter/Periscope, YouTube, and Facebook, both my public personal account as well as my Futurist Jim Carroll account, didn't work. Who knows? So there's a lot of stuff that we're diagnosing here in real time. The good news is my bodyguard/wife, Krista, she now has a new job of a stage show floor manager, production manager. She just doesn't know yet. I got to fill her in. So she'll be sitting down here with me on all future events, making sure this all goes, because this is starting to get real. This is starting to get serious. So I'm just doing a rebroadcast. I was going to try and recover and rework what I recorded on Zoom earlier, and it was really lousy quality. So I'm recording this and I'm going to work with this. So what I'm covering today is a couple of issues. Number one, when do we go back to normal? I'm going to talk about my views on that and what I see my clients talking about. I'm going to talk about some of the trends that I'm seeing unfold out there, because I am getting calls from real clients, real people looking for real insight. And I'll talk to you a little bit about the trends that I've been talking to folks about, because I think people are starting to wake up once again in terms of what comes next. And I'm going to talk about innovation and what do we need to do to be creative and aligned to this future and all that kind of stuff, because like I'm the futurist guy. Now, I used this particular image this morning and I got feedback from someone that said, whoa, it's really freaky. It's like way too much. Tone back on that. But I'm really trying to push the boundaries here in terms of what I can do so that this isn't your typical Zoom web shot thing. That's my whole thing. So let's get to the first big issue. Got to get the right camera angle here, because I can now have two really cool video cameras. Building this thing on the cheap, the camera I'm talking to you through right now is $80 used on Kijiji, which is an eBay-like service, and gives me a big upgrade in picture quality from your typical webcam. So that's kind of cool. So, big question. When do we get back to normal? When do we get back to this life in which, we're all walking around in the streets and, things are going on, and we're out there in a real world once again. And, this has to be the question I'm getting from meeting planners, from speakers bureaus, from my neighbors, from virtually everybody. And I'm sure you're getting the same thing. And, I think there's different schools of thought here. What I've been fascinated by, as someone who studies trends, is the different attitude and realities that people are taking towards this thing. And, the return to work, and some people seem to think we press a magic button and, we all go back to work and, everything is like it was in the old days, and that, we press a simple button and, all of a sudden meetings and conferences and events are real and they're happening and they're live, and it's just like it was. And I don't think it's going to happen like that. I tend to follow the science people. I tend to follow the folks who are in the know in terms of what is going on, what is unfolding. And look, we also know there's some people out there who are pretty darn weird about what the heck we can do to, quote, reopen the economy. So, some areas in the U.S., freedom comes at the end of a gun. Really. So I think the jury is out on this. I think we're in this strange new world, and I do not anticipate any type of return to normal anytime soon. I think we are in this weird new normal, and we just got to figure it out. And we got to figure out, how do we build businesses in this? How do we reinvent businesses in this? How do we realign ourselves to the future? And look, when it comes to that issue of the future, if you had seen me on stage anytime in the last 5 years, you know that I had a great time on stage talking about my good friend George Jetson, and I used him as a metaphor to try to get across the fact that, look, the future is happening faster than we think. The future is coming at us with staggering speed. And I use the phrase that we live in the era of acceleration. Really, that's what's going on. Everything's speeding up. This has become more real. Things are speeding up every single day, and you're witnessing that with a lot of the trends that you see going on around you. But change is everywhere, and with that change, I have found myself a new metaphor, a new storyline to use on my new stage in my basement here, that I think really puts in perspective what might be happening as we return to some sort of weird new normal. And this concept is based on what is going on in the show Get Smart. You might remember the bubble of silence. They went into the bubble of silence in order to share top level secrets. I think we're going to see technologies, ideas, concepts that involve the bubble of silence, which are going to take us into this new world of social distancing with a social aspect to it. You'll have seen the, this is the personal bubble of silence that you're seeing right here. It's like almost like a cell phone where they could talk to each other socially distant. Who knows? We're going to get there, but maybe someone will watch this and say that's the secret to success. But you will also remember in the Get Smart show. I mean, I grew up with it in the late '60s. You'll also remember they had the cone of silence that they could put down over them, and they would have a discussion. And you might see that type of thing beginning to happen in restaurants. You might see that type of thing beginning to happen in office boardroom meetings. You might begin to see the implementation of all kinds of interesting new technologies, that people are using to get around the reality of where we're going in this fascinating, new, and complex world. So, that's an issue to think about. That's a trend to think about. Look, in my mind, we're not going back to any sort of normal soon. I don't think that we, flip a magic switch and walk around with some guns and, all of a sudden everything's back to normal and, life returns. It's not going to be like that. I think if you subscribe to that, you should carefully check your assumptions on what is going on, because this is complex, this is real, this is not easily solvable. We are all entering a new future that is just so fundamentally different. It's absolutely staggering. And that's why, if you've been following my broadcast here, you know that I've been spending a huge amount of time to reinvent myself in my home broadcast studio. And I think I'm finally getting my groove down. Every single day since August 2016, I've been putting out a daily quote. Got to get the camera right here with all these cameras happening. Putting out a daily inspirational quote, which captures my thoughts on the future, innovation, disruption, personal life issues, all kinds of stuff. How do we align ourselves to this faster future? And I've done this every single workday since August 2016. I have not missed a single day. And this was the story that I put up this morning. This was the quote that I put up this morning. And what I wrote, work hard enough, and eventually you'll find your canvas of creativity. I think what I've discovered here is my canvas of creativity. I think I found my groove. And I'm actually talking to a whole bunch of speakers bureaus now. I'm talking to a number of meeting planners. And hey, look, I had my first paid corporate gig, which I'm doing Tuesday morning. I'm like over the moon because the work I'm putting in here to invent my future, I think is going to pay off. If you don't have the future you want, you need to invent the future you desire. And you only do that with innovation, hard work. And if our world economy is going to be so fundamentally different going forward into the future, I mean, you got to reinvent yourself for the reality of what is occurring out there. And it goes to the heart of my tagline: the future belongs to those who are fast. And look, I had a brand new book come out just before this thing unfolded. Think big, start small, scale fast. I got hundreds of them sitting on my bookshelf because, who's buying books right now? But that mantra works. What we need to do is think really big in terms of how this new future is going to unfold. We've got to start small in terms of, what we can do with new projects and new ideas. And we really need to scale in terms of what we can do. So really, really critical we think about that. Now, what I lined myself up to do this morning on Zoom was I had a little bit of time for a Q&A. And I'm hoping that I'm live on Facebook and some of the other channels, and I'm still figuring all of this out, and would at some point in time be able to see your questions as they come in. There is so much to figure out in this new world. The other thing I can do, and I figured this out, is how to take a live Skype call. So I'm working towards adding new features to my online broadcast every single week. And more Q&A will be introduced next week. We had some on the Zoom call this morning. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm going to bring in a Skype panelist as well for some discussion about the future, about trends. So second part, let's talk about trends. Let's talk about some of the things that I've been talking to my clients about, some of the trends that we might see unfold in the future, because it's kind of fascinating what is occurring out there. Now, you'll notice I'm looking around here a little bit as I talk, because I got a whole bunch of stuff in the studio here to monitor what is going on. Straight ahead of me, I've got a Mac, and that's doing the main production. Over here on this side, I've got a big screen TV, and I can see the actual broadcast signal that I'm sending out. Up above that, I've got a computer in which I can actually see the Facebook Live stream, which is going out here right now, and can see that that's still working. And further over to the right, there's an actual other Mac laptop which is sitting there, and that's currently being used to restream the signal. And I can see that sitting there as well. And that one's like 20 seconds delay. So I got all this stuff happening here. But let's talk about trends. Let's talk about autonomy. We are going to enter the era of autonomy. Now, before the big global economic meltdown, I was on stage last event. One of the last events was with the American Truck Dealers Association, dealers of trucks. And I was talking about the future of trucking, future of logistics, future of transportation. And I've done a lot of talks in that space. And obviously, we were all talking about self-driving trucks, and we're going to see an acceleration of technology. But one of the trends that I talked about with them, and that I talked about in my keynote in Morocco for the World Bank in November, and then I talked about the previous year in Muscat, Oman, with a big global event for the International Roads Union, was the arrival of last mile delivery infrastructure. Now, this is really cool technology. The concept's been around for a while. We'll have a lot of little small trucks that will hook onto big trucks, and they will drive around the neighborhood and do the last mile delivery stuff. You might see this with the sod deliveries or the dirt deliveries occur in a lot of neighborhoods now in springtime. You get a big flatbed truck drives into the neighborhood, guy with a flatbed truck, goes up to the back of it, takes it off, dumps it in your driveway. Well, that type of stuff is going to be automated, because what we are searching for in the era of COVID-19 is what can we do to automate a lot of stuff to deal with the new social distancing challenges that are occurring. So I think we're going to see tremendous trends occurring with last mile delivery stuff. Another trend to think about, obviously, huge numbers of innovation occurring in the world of retail is, with local delivery and curbside pickup, and they're doing pick and pack on your behalf. People are doing a huge amount of grocery shopping online, and it's extremely tedious. I mean, and you got to go order every single pepper that you want, every single onion, and sometimes it goes wild. So my wife was shopping on one online site, and she would order bananas by the single banana. Then she switched to another online grocery store. She ordered 10 bananas. And they were doing it in bunches, and all of a sudden, our last order, we had 10 bunches of bananas. I mean, we had bananas, falling around all over the house. It was absolutely fascinating. A lot of banana bread after that. But here's the thing. I think what we are going to see is a lot of innovation that might somehow make this online grocery and shopping experience a little bit more palatable, a little bit more interesting. So the world of retail, before the big global economic meltdown, was working hard with autonomous, with virtual reality and augmented reality software and technologies. I think we might see a resurgence of that. I think we're going to see a number of retailers realize, look, people are going to be shopping online for a while. Let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's make it a little bit more engaging. Let's get into a world where we can do something in terms of product promotion and uplift and promotion through the utilization of extremely sophisticated technologies. What are they going to do to help to get this to you? Well, concierge service. Think about when you go in a high-end hotel and you've got a concierge, or you're traveling on an airline and they've got a concierge. You've got people who do extra work on your behalf because you are a prized customer. I think what is going to happen in the world of retail is we're going to see the emergence of a whole series of people who are, what do we call them? Personal shoppers. People who are doing things on your behalf. You don't feel comfortable in going to a store and doing your grocery shopping, they will go out and do it to you for you for a fee. You don't feel comfortable going into an actual store to browse some aisles, they will do it for you for a fee. I think we are going to see the emergence of a whole sort of, Uber style concierge for hire type of service that is really going to reinvent the entire concept of what it means to go out and get stuff. And I think we are going to see a lot of innovations occur with what we might call turnkey e-commerce services. I know a lot of small mom and pop shops, smaller organizations are struggling with the whole issue of how do we do online shopping? How do we support online shopping? How do we put in place the shopping cart? How do we do the curbside pickup? I think we're already seeing a lot of the leading e-commerce companies work at this, but I think we're going to see the emergence of a lot of enterprising young people who are going to say, we'll give you the whole thing. We will give you a turnkey service and just simply do what is necessary to get you there. Then there's education. I mean, look, education is the most complex industry on the planet. I have keynoted more education groups than I could care to admit through the years. And I mean, this is a system that is incredibly difficult to move and innovate and keep going forward. It's clogged by inertia, and now all the kids are at home and they're all doing Zoom calls and they're all doing Zoom-based education. And I think the big open question is, are they going back to university and college in the fall? I highly doubt it. I don't think it's going to happen. Are they going back to elementary school? Open question. It's a really interesting one to think about. And I think the big concern here is if you are financially invested in your young people going back to university, you're faced with some pretty hard choices. So I was talking to a neighbor friend of mine, and they've got two young kids in university, and like, thousands, $10,000 to send them back. And, the question is, are you going to pay that type of money to have them sit at home and watch a Zoom call? Or are we going to, migrate to this world of education on demand a la carte? Instead of a flat fee university-based education or college-based education, we might see a lot of innovation with high-quality education, which occurs on a just-in-time knowledge basis, in which you go out and buy an education course at the moment you need it, or on a schedule basis for a flat fee for that particular education course, rather than buying a whole degree. And when you get the whole degree done, then you get the university program plaudits and certificate. I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in this space because they are disrupted in a massive way. The other thing that is going on is, like, how do you keep attention of people in this weird online space? I mean, my attention span is challenged. I've been online since 1982. People on a Zoom call, people online, they're only a mouse click away from doing something different. So how do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them, part of your video stream? You can't. You got to do stuff like I'm doing here in the home broadcast studio, and you need to innovate. And so I think part of what is going to happen is we're going to see the reemergence of gaming concepts within the education context. If we are delivering some type of online education course, we can layer on top of that gaming elements for the gaming generation to incentivize them to participate and keep their attention span focused on the education that is being delivered to them and that they are interacting with. If we see the gamification of education, that might also help us to accomplish things. Other trends to keep an eye on: restaurants. Going out to restaurants. Well, is it going to happen? I don't know. We might be in that Get Smart bubble of silence, so we can sit across from the table each other and be safe from breathing on each other. I think we are also going to see an explosion of restaurants or food as a service. And what's going to happen here, and it's already happening, is chefs are going to realize that their future doesn't lie in opening a restaurant. It lies in taking some low-cost commercial or industrial space, setting up a full-fledged high-end kitchen in that space, integrating delivery infrastructure into that, and maximizing on the home delivery opportunity through some low-cost facility rather than the high expense of an actual restaurant. We could be at home for a long time. And I think that it's the savvy entrepreneurs who recognize that, accept that realize we're not going to press a switch and the economy magically comes back, but instead you have to innovate, change, and adapt. When are we going to travel? When are we going to get to the beach? Like, when is that happening? Who knows? All I know is in the province of Ontario, where I live, we're finally getting some summertime this weekend, so I'm absolutely thrilled. So let's close with some thoughts on innovation. When I have been on stage for 25 years, I always had, sort of three elements to my talk. The personal motivation part. What do you do to ensure that you are part of the future? What are the trends that might provide you opportunity going forward into the future? And most importantly, what are the innovation attitudes, actions, and plans that you should pursue to make sure that you are a part of it? And people always loved the innovation part of this. What I'm realizing is happening out there is people are at various different stages in their acceptance of what has occurred here. I call it the 7 stages of economic grief. And if you've participated in previous shows, I've talked about that. But for the new people, I'll just repeat it. We are going through a stage of bereavement with the economy. And many of you are still stuck in the anger, shock, and denial phase. When the economic meltdown happened, I knew from previous experience that I had to get to the acceptance phase really quick. And that's why I worked really hard to build up this home a green screen studio, enhancing its capabilities. I haven't stopped. I got all kinds of ideas. I've got a whole empty corner over there, and I have visions of using that to build a desktop set so that I have actually 2 stage sets in my home by which I can do different things for different audiences. Never stop innovating. But what I realized is with this recession, if you're stuck in anger, grief, denial, you're not going to be part of the breakthrough performers who come out extremely well positioned on the other side of this thing. There's a study I've often referred to that said 60% of organizations in previous economic downturns, they just sort of muddled their way through. They didn't do anything big and bold. 30% didn't make it. They disappeared. 10% became breakthrough performers because they specifically decided, despite lingering economic uncertainty, right now is the time to do something great. You want to be a part of the 10%. And to do that, you have to smash through the innovation barriers. And look, I mean, dealing with innovation for 25 years, I know that companies and people make all kinds of excuses that hold them back from doing the things they need to do to align to the future. Think about the excuses you hear. Well, why can't we just keep doing what we've done all along? And this used to be a favorite excuse, but it bears even more relevance today because everything has changed in a fundamental manner. You can't keep doing what you've been doing all along. It won't work. We are in a new and dramatic world, and you need new and dramatic ideas. Some people set themselves up for innovation failure with the concept that it won't work. They get in the mindset they're doomed to fail right off the bat. I mean, come on. You're not going to achieve any type of business or corporate or personal success if you have a mindset that you're going to fail. You win by failing. You get ahead by failing. You discover growth by failing. You innovate by failing. It's by failing that you achieve success. Then I get people who go, it's too risky. I'm not going to try and do that. It's too risky. I'm too worried about making a mistake. I'm live. This is my 5th week in. My second show was a horrific disaster. Well, it wasn't that bad, but I shared it to a Facebook group, and one guy who has a production background said, "Look, it wasn't well done. It was too confusing. The scene transitions were wild. Like it wasn't working." I was devastated for like 15 minutes, and I said, "Well, let's go fix it." And so I'm investing a huge amount of time, having a huge amount of fun, just learning huge amounts of stuff about how to have a cool home broadcast studio. And I get in there, 2 cameras, all kinds of lights, all kinds of stuff happening, driving my wife nuts because I keep rebuilding this thing and enhancing it, and more visions. And I'm going live. I'm doing this live. Things go wrong, things happen. But hey, that's part of our world, and that's how we get ahead. Is doomed to fail. Oh, come on. If that's your mindset, you really need to do some work. The boss won't go for it. And this is a challenging one right now with economic uncertainty. There's some senior executives who are obviously dealing with crisis, and they're in survival mode, and they got to keep the business afloat. And the last thing they want to be thinking about is, how do we realign our organization to the future and getting them thinking about the future. But you got to move ahead. You have to make a conscious decision at some point in time that, now is the time to do things. But then I get this one. We don't need to do it right now. Like, really? If you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? It's not like the future is going to stop. It's not like things are going to slow down. The future is unfolding at an absolutely furious pace, and you need to be a part of it. I've always heard a lot of organizations and people make the excuse, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. And think about what happens here. You go into a meeting, you go into a Zoom call, you present an idea that you're really excited by, and somebody says to you, well, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Boom, deflated. What happens here? You've just put a pinprick in the bubble of your enthusiasm. I mean, you're not going to come back with any sort of new idea ever again. This is the worst mistake that we can make when it comes to new ideas. It goes against tradition. Like, okay, so your point is, it's not like tradition is going to outlast the future. The PGA of America, Professional Golfers Association of America, the largest working sports organization in the world, they had me in twice. Once to speak to their annual general meeting, 500 golf pros. They invited me again to open their merchandise show in Orlando. Golf, tradition, 500 years of tradition. And they had me in because I explicitly addressed the issue of how do we challenge tradition with innovation while still respecting tradition. We can innovate in the context of tradition. And in fact, we need to. I think about the world of golf. I mean, young kids today, they have lower attention spans. They're not really into a 5-hour game. How do we align them and the sport together to a new future to pursue opportunity? Big one these days. We have a spending freeze. Well, yeah, I mean, there's an economic meltdown going on, and budgets are tight, and I mean, this is a massive. This is bigger than the Big Depression. But as I indicated to a friend the other day, you can't make money if you don't spend money. We need to invest somehow in what we are doing. We need to do it new and careful in different ways. So, like, I got this $80 video camera, which I'm talking into right now. Look at the quality now. Whoa, way better than the webcam. So we can carefully spend money, but we can do it with full recognition that we need to invest in the future to get to the future. I think the worst one right now is I don't think I can. I think a lot of people set themselves up for failing with the future because they convince themselves they don't have the skills, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the capability. I really didn't know a lot about online broadcasting 5 weeks ago. I had dabbled with it, I had played with it. Then I discovered the Facebook group of people who were using the same software I'm using: church ministers, disc jockeys, musicians, fellow speakers like me, painters, anybody who has a crying need to reach out to an audience. And we're all discovering together things we can do that we never knew we could do. And last week, my big thrill was, how to figure out how to make a little mini me in a circle, on a screen of a video playing like you saw with the Jetsons earlier. Like, we can accomplish anything if we...
This is a top to what we use on stage, but it's very, very special because if you can see, the numbers all go to 11. Look, right across the board. 11, 11,
and most of
11,
the amps go up to 10.
Exactly.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it? It's not 10. You see, most blokes are going to be playing at 10. You're on 10 here, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. You're on 10 on your guitar. Where can you go from there? Where?
I don't know.
Nowhere, exactly. What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
My list went to 10, but any good list these days goes to 11. So number 11, this is an innovation killer that I'm hearing on a lot of the calls. A lot of the discussions I'm having with people these days. Right camera, that camera. We need some clarity before acting. Like, really, we're not going to have clarity. There's no clarity. Uncertainty, volatility, adaptability. There is no clarity. The phrase I always used on stage was this: we don't know where we're going, but we are making great time. And if you are waiting to make big, bold decisions about your future based on some sort of clarity of what is going to happen in the future, you're doing the wrong thing. This is a massive zone of uncertainty. This is a world of ambiguity. This is a world of volatility. And you just have to buckle down and strap in and go for the ride and innovate and align and disrupt in the context of just not knowing exactly what is happening. That's what I'm doing here. Making it up as I go. Every show keeps getting better and better. I'm working hard. I'm hoping you can join me. I don't expect that we're going to be in any sort of world of certainty anytime soon. And I certainly don't think it's going to happen at the end of a barrel of a gun. Boy, what a crazy world we're living in, right? It's just fascinating to think about what is unfolding here. So it's all about failure, success. Look at that, failure, success. This is a slide deck from last week. I actually had my son, shout out to my son, by the way, Willie Carroll, who's designed these frames for me, and I didn't replace this one with the one that he fixed for me where I'm supposed to be up there. So failure, success, this is all part of the deal. We're going to fail as we succeed. So this is what I'm doing. I'm reinventing my business. I'm disrupting my business. I figure I'm going to be hanging out in this business for quite some time. So I am figuring out how to do a stage style presentation in an area that is 6 by 12 by 8. And I think it's working. I've got a tremendous number of ideas on where I can go with this in the future. I got a busy week next week. I got 4 events happening. I got a paid gig on Tuesday. I'm actually going to be speaking to a group of grade 5 students with my good buddy Ian Bates. He's a grade 5 teacher through Google Meet. And I'm going to do the full-on studio presentation, interaction, discussion with them. in a Google Hangout because we're going to do a class project together. What the heck? It gives me some good opportunity for live stage broadcast training. And then on Thursday, I have my regular show, 11:30 a.m. every Thursday morning, Toronto time. I'm even giving up my golf game. Hey, guess what? Golf is open. Yay. Not going to golf Thursday morning because I'm live 11:30 every Thursday. And then I'm actually doing a broadcast into the software Facebook group of which I am part to talk about my experience as I work to build this broadcast studio for a new disruptive future. So I'm also going to work on a behind-the-scenes tour of how it works, what it does, and as I go forward, going to work to build in a lot of Q&A into my discussions. So thank you very much for joining me. We're about to head into a long weekend here in Canada. I have to get my stage perspective right. Which camera am I looking into? And we're actually having summertime, so it's really cool because every single weekend here, the weather has sucked, and my big highlight every single weekend has been getting the vacuum out and vacuuming the house. Going to actually be outside, a lot of bike riding, a lot of fun, a lot of joy. Send me your questions. Thank you for watching. This is going to be archived and posted to my website that you can revisit it at any time. Tell your friends about it. Visit me online, jimcarroll.com, @JimCarroll on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram, LinkedIn, have a Facebook page, and it's also up on YouTube. And I think maybe a couple of other places. Send me your thoughts. Thank you for tuning in.